When you have CPTSD, you sometimes think you're the only person who has the problem that you have. And the beautiful thing about coming into a community with other people who are healing their trauma is that you find out that so many of your symptoms are common. They are normal. They're a normal symptom that happens to kids in abnormal circumstances. One of the places where people in our community get to learn from each other and find out just how similar their issues are is in our membership program. Here we do group coaching every 2 weeks. And for this session, Megan has brought her question about when can she trust her perception. And I think you'll like it.
Hi.
Hi there. Hi, Megan. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks, Hannah. One thing I noticed is that I almost don't have any, well, I'm getting better, but I don't have any idea if someone is right about perceptions. Now, I know that, there's no right or wrong, your own perception, but I grew up with my mom telling me that my perceptions were wrong, like my entire life. And then she teamed up with my sister. So it was just her, like this duo, and they were both telling me. So I grew up thinking that there's something wrong with me. Like I'm living in a fantasy land or something, and my feelings and perceptions were wrong and completely invalidated. And so I lived most of my life that way, thinking other people's perceptions were correct and I was wrong somehow. And what woke me up to the idea, just even the idea that that might not be true, was when my mother passed away and I was at her memorial. And a lot of her friends, several, came up and talked to me, and they alluded to the idea that my mom basically, favored my sister, and it was all about my sister, and my brother was hurt. He said some of them didn't even know that she had a son, and so I was woken up to the idea. I felt like, wow, everyone on the outside could see this going on. And yet I was in the family screaming and yelling about it because I was so unhappy about the dynamics. And then I was told I was wrong all this time, but everyone on the outside of the family could see it. But what that did to me, though, is that I feel I'm gullible to other people. If they tell me this is how they're feeling and what's going on with them, I tend to believe them. But I'm learning that people aren't always honest. They have other agendas.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm gullible. I feel like I'm very prone to being gaslighted because I'm so absorbed in like trying to, get the perception right, because I still don't trust my own perceptions.
Oh, I hear you. Who here has that too? Go like this. Trouble trusting your perceptions. Yeah, everybody here. That is such a CPTSD thing. Yeah, it's
so really. How do you stand up for yourself if you think you might be wrong or off, or something? I mean,
yeah, well, it's, the dilemma is if you just go and start steamrolling in and going, no, I'm right, my perception is right, when you have doubt about it, well, you could be wrong. And sometimes we are. And so, yes, it's a problem that we don't stand up for ourselves. And underneath that problem is the problem that we have trouble being sure what we're perceiving. And so that's a high priority healing thing, is to start healing your perception. That it's a terrible thing. I don't know about you, when I was a kid, there was a lot of like, mommy, I'm scared, about the way she was driving or something. And she'd go, oh, stop it. You're such a worry wart. And then I ended up with all this like screwy stuff. Like I was terrified of leaky faucets. If the sink was dripping in the bathroom, I couldn't sleep all night. I was panicked that the whole house would fill up with water. Just stuff like that. That's how it would manifest. If I couldn't believe you when you told me straight, like what's dangerous and what's not. And definitely driving with a drunk driver is definitely dangerous. And even a 4-year-old knows it. You can feel it. You can feel the chaos, or bringing people into the house who are just not safe, who had this like terrible, scary, angry energy, and getting drunk and breaking things. And then I'd say, I don't like this. I don't want, I'd make it stop. And she'd be like, no, you're just being you're so sensitive. I was so
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
sensitive. We're so sensitive. That's right. We have sensitivity. We can feel things, but there's still that damage where some loop has been formed in our thinking where we're like, I feel like I'm in danger. I don't know if I can believe myself. And we get hypervigilant. We perceive danger where there is none.
Yeah. For me, it's attention. So my sister got a lot of attention. And so when I feel like I'm being ignored or someone else is getting more attention, maybe where I feel like I deserve it or I'm being overlooked or something, I just feel so scared. Like,
is the fear that you're going to like express that and then look foolish to other people, or what's the fear?
Yeah, like a child who just, wants attention, pay attention to me, look at me. But I'm just really super hyper vigilant of being ignored.
Yeah.
And pushed aside and just made quiet or sit in the back seat or take a back seat to other people. I mean, I get so scared in those situations.
That situation where you're in a group and you are talking and all of a sudden somebody else just starts talking on top of you.
Yeah.
And there's this feeling of humiliation, like, I'm such an idiot. And you bring your hand down and just pretend.
Well, I got angry one time at a whole group of people. I felt like I was trying to say something and everyone else could speak. And yet I couldn't get myself in there. Yeah. And I just stood up and said, I'm trying to speak. And why isn't anyone listening? Can anyone hear me when I'm talking? I mean, I just was so upset.
Yeah.
And everyone just was quiet, like, where'd that come from? They didn't even realize it was happening, but maybe one person realized it or something. But
well, when a person is triggered and feeling that, it comes out like shrill. That's what shrill refers to, I'm speaking here. And then the fear of looking like that girl stops us from speaking up. And then people can be very judgmental. Like we're not 100% imagining that something's going on there.
Yeah.
So I see this as a multi-layered healing approach, and it's a lifelong project to start regaining your perception again. And part of that comes through testing your perception and allowing yourself to live your life and go out there and start testing your assumption, like, I think this person seems like a jerk, but I'm going to go ahead and have coffee with them. And then you go there in a sort of neutral way and start to just pay attention. Was my perception reliable? And this is one reason why writing what is bothering you, these techniques we teach, writing and resting your mind, to keep surfacing and facing, like, awful fear they talk behind people's back, fear they judge me, fear they don't really want to have coffee with me. They just said it to be polite. Let's just say, for example, some fears came up. You go and have the coffee, and then having written and meditated, you have a little bit of neutrality to just go, well, let's see what's going on. And people sometimes pleasantly surprise you and you're like, I was tripping, but you have to, and sometimes it's like, they're even worse than you thought. And then you have a buddy to talk to, and you can start to so much of our lives, we've been shielding ourselves from experience by either just kind of evacuating our presence, not being present, spacing out, shutting down, being dishonest about how we really feel about things, or simply not going to the coffee date, just avoiding people altogether. That's how so many of us have coped, that we actually have a developmental delay in how do you read people? What does it mean when they say this? When they say annoyed, do they mean they hate you, or do they mean it's like a small thing? Like, we need that experience. And to have that experience, we need a way to comfort ourselves and deal with all the, every time you go talk to somebody or express your feelings, the way you feel once you're out of that interaction and you have to go sit in your car and cry and worry that I never should have said that. I'm such an idiot. That's a CPTSD thing too. And instead of just sitting there and stuffing it down or raging, you write it. You just write the feelings that are coming up and all of that. Now you're like in the best possible position when you've experienced life and it triggers you, and then you can take it into these exercises, because unless you can get all effed up about what's happening, about what just happened, you're not going to have the opportunity to face what those fears, they don't really come and announce themselves to you, but then one day they come up like a volcano. And if you can name them and get them on paper, now you're in business. Now you're moving things forward. And it starts to be more like, a flushing out of all this like calcified old stuff that's not even like necessary anymore. You don't have to get in a car with a dangerous driver. You don't have to have coffee with people you don't like. It's a whole new world. But you can't see it when you're so used to second guessing yourself and thinking, well, I better go or I'll be alone forever. That unconscious fear that's not on the paper. It's just running the show. It's just causing you to do irrational things, like have coffee with people you don't like and think that there's just something wrong with you. Mm-hmm. But that said, there is something wrong with us. I'm always like, yes, but let's keep in mind we do have an injury. It affects our perception. So we're working on it. So one of the sort of like seat belts that I have on this is when I begin to think that people are against me or untrustworthy, I use my tools, I talk to another person, and I try to wait a really long time, if I can, safely, before expressing this to them. When if I go into a big, like triggered reaction about something and express myself, then it doesn't tend to go that well. I haven't really been true to myself. I haven't said what really needed to be said. Often I've alienated the person and hurt them, and I didn't want to do that. And next thing you know, oh, now I'm the bad guy. How many times has that happened? Oh, now I'm the bad guy. You see what you made me do. So you don't want to be in that situation. You want to be true to yourself and able to kind of pause and take your time and stay regulated as you decide what you will express, if you can. It's not always possible. Let's be real. Sometimes in the moment you have to just say, take your cup of coffee off my book. Damn it. And that's okay. And then go write about how stupid you feel about saying that and what they must think of you. And that's how our minds work. We're often engaged in this emotional, spinning wheel, and we get it on paper so we can just like slow it down and start to perceive what's actually happening. And it happens in layers. And when you feel more confident that you know how to deal with emotions that come up, you're going to be more confident to say yes to social get-togethers or things that were previously kind of risky for you. A weekend away with girlfriends who, I don't know, just whatever it is. For me, it's like dumb stuff like that can be really threatening. Mm-hmm. I'm finally learning, like, I do not have to get together with people who, put me down, don't listen when I speak, that kind of thing. I can be choosier. Mm-hmm. Taking me forever. So anything else, Megan, about that?
Yeah, I think you really hit on it when you said difficulty in reading people. Mm-hmm. And one thing comes to mind. I remember a girlfriend who was going through a divorce, and I called her to check in and just say, hi, I hope you're doing okay. And she was the type of person who always didn't ever talk about herself. And when she said, I'm doing fine. And she said a couple things, but she shifted it over to me, like, oh, and how are you? So I read that to be like, okay, she's shared as much as she wants to share. And so now, it's over to me. So I sort of took the ball, and I'm like, okay, well, and then I talked about me. Well, later on, in that conversation, she got angry with me because she said, I'm going through a divorce and I'm the one going through all this trouble, but yet you just want to talk about you the whole time.
Feel you. Yes.
I'm like, okay, because I feel like I'm accused of that a lot. Like, it's all about you, but you know what? I'm just maybe reading people's cues wrong. I don't think it's all about me, but sometimes maybe it is. I mean, I don't know. I feel like there's a back and forth, but in that case, I was very confused.
I believe you. I relate so much. I've been confused by the same thing. And I will say that I've been guilty many times of making things about me. That happens. But sometimes I've had friends who, I guess I would call it codependence, that they're people pleasing. We've all heard you should ask other people questions about themselves. and be so perky and ask questions about themselves. And I'm like, I just take it literally that they actually wanted to know. And it's a long story, and off I go to the races.
Yeah, me too. I do that.
And in my mind, my wish is that everybody would stand up for themselves and say, cool, but I want to tell you about something. Like, I just wish people would do that, because I got the power in my healing to do that when I want to do it. I'm glad. And I got the power to like hang back and listen too more of the time. But I wish everybody would speak up and not have a little secret covert grudge that I'm doing something wrong and not tell me. I hate that. I feel backstabbed by that. And it's some people, I have an introvert husband, and I've learned from being with him, sometimes I have to just let there be long silences and then say, what do you think about that? And sometimes he's just spaced out. Sometimes he's collecting his thoughts. Like, as an introvert, he needs time to put his thought together. So if I just sort of naturally, like if I wait 5 seconds and he doesn't say anything and I go, well, I'll tell you about another thing, then I'm actually railroading him. Who knew? I see Scott smiling. Are you an introvert too? Yeah. Introverts need to tell us.
Yes. I had an introvert husband for a long time too.
Yeah. Kara's saying something. Are you muted, Kara? Kara, put on your mic. I want to hear what
I
you're
was
saying.
just as also having an introverted husband and me being the talker. And so with a pause, I'll be like, are you listening to me? And he's like, he's processing what I said like 3 stories ago.
Yeah. Or my husband's like totally exhausted because it exhausts him to show to be social at all. Sometimes, he needs to have his time cycle between connection and downtime and connection and downtime. People are each very different. And I'm a big believer, like, people need to be free to be themselves. They need to be free to say what they need to say. Sometimes if they say it in a way that's really hurtful, I might not want to be friends with them anymore, but people need to do that. And so that suppression is no fun. I was talking to my son about a book he was reading, and the book had this concept in it about, like, sometimes when people, we're talking about codependent people who just, they're people pleasing you. And then all of a sudden this rage pops out, like, and just like blast you in the face. Like, don't be that person. It's so much better to express yourself or ask a question and say, I'm sorry, I'm kind of confused right now. Does it feel like I'm talking too much? You can say that. And it's so much better than trying to be good and trying to guess and read their mind. And then later, all of a sudden, having that big blast, that big, just, huge, just like eruption of all the stuff you've been suppressing. That doesn't do anybody a favor. Or helping people resentfully. If you really don't want to do something, don't do it. I mean, if it's your kids, you just got to do what you got to do. But it's better to be honest about where you want to be so that you can show up present and with an open heart and having fun and enjoying it. It's not fun for anybody to have a resentful person in the mix. It sucks. Ugh. Resentful people suck. And it's so dishonest. How can you even respect somebody or trust them if they can't be straight with you about that? So I always say, better to speak up even if you spoke too much or you spoke too rashly or you were a little intense. At least you're expressing yourself, because if you're using these techniques to keep processing the overflow of emotions that come with all the shame about doing it wrong or not knowing what, is this real, or asking the direct question. You know what I think is a powerful question for people who are single and dating? Is this a date? When you're confused, people never want to say that, but actually, or does your wife know that you're here? To actually say the thing that feels scary to say, because just being straight about it takes all that magic fairy dust off that is making everything a delusion and something where real communication is impossible. And things will sort of find their right place when you tell the truth about where things really are. Better to make a mistake. Better to be so honest that it's a little bit foolish than to go along with feeling like you can't possibly ask the question you have about what's going on here. Is it a date? Have you ever done that? Or you don't really know if it's a date, or you don't really know if somebody's interested, or, oh my gosh, I used to just suffer in silence. All right, well, it seems like this question is kind of like found as natural. But I'm here for you, Megan, if you have anything else to say about it.
No, I just thank you for all that information. I mean, validating myself and my perceptions and how to handle that has been very helpful.
By trial and error with a friend and with tools to keep facing what the feelings are coming up. So you can learn faster. Where we got stuck at age 17 or something emotionally and not having very good perception, we can start, accelerating quickly to our real age in terms of, the maturity level we need to be having.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you. Thank you for that question. It's a thing that comes up for so many people. All right, we're going to let this one go. I thank you so much. Those of you who asked questions, those of you who just sat and were witnesses and had your shining faces here. It's been beautiful to spend this time together. If you would like to be part of the membership and take part in our group coaching meetings, we would absolutely love to have you. All you have to do is check the link for membership down below in the description section, and you'll get all the details you need. I've got a video picked out for you right here, and I will see you very soon. The secret's out. There's nothing over here.
You exposed the big secret.
I know.